So I just got back from the Summer Plant Symposium hosted by the Nursery and Landscape Association, and I realized I had to make my video for the week, so I wanted to do it now. But talking about that symposium, it was really awesome. The highlight of the day was all the presenters were talking about native plants and friendlier ways to grow plants, especially in the landscape. And the highlight of the day was obviously seeing Dr. Doug Talmy speak. He was the keynote presenter talking about how great oaks are. And if you're familiar with his work, I'm sure you know how great oaks are as well. But today's video isn't about oaks. It's actually going to be about rain gardens. And I want to show off our rain garden here. And you can see this is the gravel drain. We actually have a drain because we had a standing water issue just in between our two barns here, and you can kind of see the gravel pathway that goes in between the two barns. We had a lot of water that would accumulate there every time we had a rain event, and it wouldn't really drain away. So knowing about rain gardens, what we decided to do was add this drain, and you can see there's a corrugated pipe underneath, about 2 feet down underneath all this gravel, and it comes here and it ends up there, and you can kind of see that it goes down into this little secret garden, I guess you could call it. And here's the outflow of that pipe. And now then it goes into the abyss. And there's some weed stuff in here, and there's a lot of really great native plants as well. And I want to show you some of the plants that are really good for rain gardens, because rain gardens, I guess I should restart and say rain gardens kind of are misunderstood, and a lot of people think that rain gardens are meant for wet areas of your yard or wet areas of your landscape or your site, and that's not really the case. Rain gardens are more for places where you want to divert water from a place where you don't want it to a place that you do want it. So this was a drier area, and what we did was we excavated down probably about 3 feet or so, and from there we added a little bit of gravel in the bottom to improve the drainage, and then a little bit more soil, and then planted on top of that with using a seed mix, our rain garden seed mix that we offer on our website, and then planted a lot of plants as well. But the plants you want to choose for a rain garden aren't necessarily plants that really like it in wet soils, because a rain garden, if designed properly, isn't going to always be wet. It's going to have wet periods when you get that rain and you're diverting it, like we are, from way up there, and you're diverting it now about 100 feet away. You're putting it into an area that was once dry, and now it's going to be wet, and but only until that water soaks into the ground. And then on the other side of this rain garden, about 50 feet away, this is a really big rain garden, we have another outflow pipe in case we get a major storm event, and this rain garden, we don't want it to overflow. So there's a ditch on the other side of those trees over there, so that outflow pipe is up higher than this is, and it'll go into that ditch if this gets too high. But the idea is for the water that would be, again, accumulating over there, instead now it's traveling down this drain into this rain garden, and then this rain garden, it's going to slowly seep into the ground, and then eventually, if you don't have rain, it's going to dry out. So you need plants, when planting a rain garden, you need plants that can take some wet feet at times, but also can take periods of dry conditions. So I'm going to highlight some of the ones that we have here. Obviously, I talked about a lot of our asters. You can see that right there. That's New England Aster, and then just to the left, since they're all seed grown, a little bit different. That one's a little bit pinker. It's still New England Aster, just a little bit different color. We have a lot of Canada goldenrod in here. We have some Solidago nemoralis, which is great goldenrod as well. But let's see some of the other things we have. So one that you can see in there is some of our cattails. Now we grow narrow-leaf cattail and broadleaf cattail, and that's Typha Angustifolia and Typha Latifolia. We actually didn't plant these in here, and many of you know from having your own projects that that cattails often, if it's wet enough, will come in on their own. Like I mentioned, there's New England Aster. I think that's woolgrass right here. I'm pretty sure that's woolgrass. You have some hibiscus, which is a really nice plant. Now it's an obligate plant, and if I get a little bit closer here, you can see that it's just going to seed now, but this has those big, almost like saucer size flowers that bloom in the late summer. It's a really, really beautiful plant. Almost gets a woody stem, but it's definitely an herbaceous plant. And you can see down at the bottom, there's just a little bit of water. This hibiscus is going to want it. It's an obligate plant. It's going to want to be in at least moist soils most of the time. You have some willow growing in here. That's something we probably want to remove for the functionality of this system. Let's see. This was, New York ironweed that was growing here. That's another really cool plant that, again, likes it on the wetter side, but can take periods of dry conditions. We have some mountain mint. This one is Pycnanthemum tenuifolium, or slender mountain mint, and that's got a really minty fragrance. If you were to sniff that, you'd be really blown away by the pepperminty smell of that plant. Really, really fantastic plant. Again, now that's not an obligate plant. That's a plant, wetland wise, it's gonna like it a little bit drier, and that's, you can tell it's on the slope of this rain garden. It's not in the basin of the rain garden. And something to consider when you are planting a rain garden is there's going to be things that are going to like it a bit moister. You're going to want to put that in the areas of the rain garden that are going to be moister longer of the time. The soil is going to be more moist for longer periods of time, like the very bottom where you have the hibiscus and the Schoenoplectus and the willow and the Typha growing. That's where you're going to want those plants. As you get up the slope, you're going to have some of the goldenrods that don't like quite as wet, the mountain mints, some of the asters that are going to want slightly dry conditions. They're still facultative wet plants. They do like having wet feet, but they can take that period of drying out. It is really, really important. Some more things that we aren't as desirable in our rain garden that, like I said, you have to maintain these rain gardens. You can't just plant them and forget about them. You have to go back in and maintain them. Like a lot of native landscapes, nature doesn't always just take over. You have to manage them because this is supposed to function. There's a functionality that happens with a lot of these rain gardens. And if you aren't maintaining it, eventually it will fail. It is a stormwater capture system at the end of the day. It's not just a garden. With rain gardens, we tend to focus on a lot of those herbaceous species, a lot of the ones I mentioned before, but we don't always focus on some of the woody species like this. This is an elderberry that actually already went to berry. Has a beautiful flower. Again, it's a plant that likes it somewhat wet at times, but it can definitely dry out. And they'll get taller than this at the end of the day, probably about 10 feet tall, 12 feet tall is the largest I've seen in our seed blocks. But another really cool plant, and the fruit is obviously edible and has a lot of antioxidants in it as well. A lot of times you'll find it in juices or syrups or those kind of things. So a lot of really cool plants can be used in these rain gardens. Eupatoriums are another great choice, whether it's spotted Joe Pye or purple Joe Pye or even Eupatorium perfoliatum. There's so many really great choices for rain gardens. Even some of your dogwoods that like it a little bit on the wetter side are great additions. But the big thing to keep in mind when planting a rain garden is it's not supposed to be permanently wet. It's not a wet spot in your yard or a wet spot in your landscape or a place that is supposed to be wet or is already gathering water. You tend to want to choose a drier location that may be downhill. That'll make it a lot easier. And you're excavating a basin and then diverting rainwater, whether it's from your gutters or you're collecting in a rain barrel, or you have a place that already gathers water in your yard and using drainage to transport it to another part of the site to then capture that water, and instead of it running off from your gutters into your driveway or from your roofs, and now it's going to end up in a storm drain someplace or in the parking lot. Parking lots are a great example where now it's going to accumulate. It'll eventually go in a storm drain. If you instead divert it to a rain garden, Now you're able to capture that water, let it slowly percolate into the ground, recharging your groundwater. And now you don't have the all the contaminants moving away. You don't have your fertilizer, your pesticides, your oils from the cars that were in that parking lot. They are no longer going into our waterways because they were basically runoff. They were running off with the precipitation that we got. They're being gathered, they're being captured by that plant material. Oftentimes the plants, especially Typha is a great example of it, where it'll soak up a lot of those contaminants and capture them and remove it's called phytoremediation, where you're pulling out those contaminants and capturing it in plant material. So they're a great addition to a variety of landscapes. Ours is a little bit, I would say, overgrown at the moment. We need to perform some maintenance on this, but there's some really great plants you can use, not just for wet site plants. You're using some drier site plants too. Things like Iris versicolor is an awesome plant. I just can't believe I didn't bring that one up before, where you have it in the bottom or the slope of that basin, and now you get that rain event and you have a few inches of water in the bottom of this system, it can handle that conditions. It can handle 3 to 6 inches of water at times. But it can also take periods where, you didn't get rain for 2 weeks or 3 weeks. It can take that period of drying out and it'll still survive. Those are plants that are awesome for these kind of systems. And handling our stormwater is super, super important. This is a fantastic way to do it, where you're using native plants and you're capturing that water. It's not going downstream somewhere where it's somebody else's problem. So thank you guys again for watching. Do us a favor, please like this video and subscribe. It does a world of difference for letting more people see these videos. I put a lot of work into them. I hope you guys really enjoy them, and I hope you want to have other people see them as well, so we can spread the message about using native plants and all the wonderful things that they do. So thank you guys.